think about this all the time, like, why is the Maah Daah Hey so hard?
Hard things open up a different type of beast inside of a human. You can stay at home, sit on a couch, but when you come out here, you get a challenge point that pushes you to the next level.
They don't call them the good lands for a reason. They're the badlands. It is rough terrain.
It's rugged, it feels backcountry. It is legitimately like a backcountry ride. I mean, you have to be prepared for anything and everything.
It's hand cut, tough, rugged, rutted out, rained out, single track, and that's what attracts me to it, man. It is a tough trail.
There's a misconception that North Dakota doesn't have any mountain biking, and the Maah Daah Hey Trail is unlike anything I've ever ridden. I've ridden my bike and raced all over the world. I've never seen anything like this trail, and it just draws me back.
The Maah Daah Hey Trail is in western North Dakota, running 144 miles down the heart of the North Dakota Badlands. It's the longest contiguous single-track trail in the United States. And each year, the Maah Daah Hey 100 mountain bike race is held the first weekend in August.
The Maah Daah Hey 100 is a puzzle, and the pieces change all the time. And once in a while you get lucky and they fit together. A lot of times they don't fit together and you gotta come up with another plan.
It's a hard freaking race, man. It's really hard. And it takes no prisoners.
You just need to be prepared. And I don't think people are prepared for it when they go out there. It's not your average 100-miler.
All of that, you have to prepare for that. And if you do, you can ride it successfully. If you're not prepared for that, it'll crush you.
For every single person who does this race, it is a life-changing experience.
My name is Kelly Magelky. I currently live in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, just outside of Denver. My current team is Go for Graham, and my bike sponsor is Orbea. It's interesting, I was never athletic growing up. I worked for my dad. We never had time to go do sports or anything like that. And when I was 18, I moved to Colorado to be a ski bum, actually. I didn't really know how to snowboard or anything, but I moved to Colorado and got a job at one of the mountains here and started teaching snowboarding after I learned how to do it. And a friend of mine loaned me a mountain bike. It just looked cool. I was like, it has like a rear shock, like that's crazy. And I just went on a mountain bike ride here. I asked where I should go, and if anyone's familiar with the Front Range of Colorado, there's literally no easy mountain biking here. I actually gravitated toward going uphill on a mountain bike. I don't know why. My first ride I had ever done, I threw up. I was trying to get to the top of this hill, and it's since become my favorite trail here. But yeah, it was a weird thing, but I kept going back. I don't know why, but I kind of fell in love with the challenge of trying to get to the top of a mountain. I did, and then it was game over. I mean, that was it. I just fell in love with the sport so much. Never thought about racing, never thought about anything back home. Like, was there a place to ride back in North Dakota? And you know, when I'm just climbing every day and I started to get better, it's kind of the one talent I have in cycling is going uphill. Somebody saw that and was like, you should go race your bike.
As a pro, Kelly found a lot of success early because he discovered he could ride his bike forever. And he became one of the top 24-hour mountain bike racers, not just in the US, but the world. At the World Championships, he finished as high as second. and he became a mainstay in the ultra-endurance mountain bike scene.
I never really wanted to do 24 hours of bike racing. The race starts and you're full on for 24 hours, and for some reason I've had some decent luck and success at that.
As Kelly started to reach the peak of his abilities, the Maah Daah Hey 100 was in its infancy.
The first time I saw Kelly Magelky was at the Race to Sunset in Bismarck, a 10-hour lap race on Father's Day weekend. Watching him just absolutely destroy the Race to Sunset course, I wanted to be like Kelly Magelky. The way that he represented himself and mountain biking and professional racing was just so appealing to me. I said, yeah, I want to be like Kelly Magelky one day.
A couple years down the road, Nick Ibarra, I met him at a bike race in Bismarck, and he had told me what his plan was, and he was like, you should come out, man. I want to get people out on the Maah Daah Hey, and I 100% believe in that.
Kelly couldn't make it to that first year, but he came the second year, and he came with the goal to break the 9-hour barrier on the Maah Daah Hey race course. And I mean, there was locals that said, can't be done. Guys who had ridden the trail just thought, you can't do that 107-mile race course in under 9 hours. Kelly did it. And it was, that was a special moment. That was, that really opened up the door.
Kelly breaks 9 hours, and he helps Nick recruit Tinker Juarez. And if we're gonna talk about all-time greats in mountain biking, at least in the United States, Tinker's in the conversation to be on the Mount Rushmore of United States mountain biking. Kelly gets Tinker there, and Tinker lowers the record. And then Josh Tostado comes onto the scene. He's one of Kelly's old rivals from the 24-hour era. And he wins, and he lowers the record. And then in 2021, Kelly has arguably his greatest day ever on a bicycle, and he shatters Josh's record. And more attention is getting put on this race because of the influence that Kelly has. And so while the Maah Daah Hey 100 might not be at the top of Kelly's results sheet, it is a race that has defined his legacy in this sport. But with a family and a film company to run, people have begun to wonder where Kelly is at within the arc of his career.
I'm at the end. I mean, I feel like I'm playing on the house's money. It's a weird thing to say. I mean, I thought I was going to be done a few years ago. What I love about it so much is the work and the just putting the effort in to be prepared. It's something that I absolutely love. It gives so much to my life. More than anything, it's like therapy for me, to be able to go and train. I do love that, but it's just a lot of work, and I just was really kind of leaning towards this, man, maybe this is the year.
As Kelly's getting ready for what is potentially his final Maah Daah Hey 100, 400 other racers are also getting ready for their big day. But as they do so, the weather is throwing a huge question mark over if this event will even take place. Because record rains are starting to hit the Badlands.
It was going to rain hard on Friday, and it was going to continue to rain into Saturday. And so we had to make some big decisions, some of the hardest decisions that my wife Lindsay and I have had to make as race directors.
The Finnish town of Medora is under a flood watch. So the first decision that Nick and Lindsay make is to turn the course from a point-to-point course to an out-and-back course, starting and ending at the northern terminus at CCC Campground.
But we were hoping that the northern 50 miles were going to be dried out enough to use them for the race. And so, we had JP was out scouting trail, getting ready to do filming, and we were texting back and forth asking, how's the trail here? How is the trail at that checkpoint? How's it looking? And it was like JP and other volunteers were sending pictures, and it was like muddy. My assistant race director, Mike Haas, and I drove down here and looked at the trail, and we were like, we got to push it back to Sunday. And so yeah, we announced based on everybody's feedback, pictures of the trail, scouts. Yeah, we bumped it back to Sunday, and it was the right decision.
Even as everybody headed to bed that night, there was quite a bit of anxiety over whether or not this event would move forward in the morning, and if the trail would be dry enough to handle all the riders were going to throw at it.
Driving out, watching the sunrise on the highway on the way to the start of that race, it just really had me thinking a lot about how many times I've done that. And that's a weird feeling to feel legitimately like that might be the last time I do that. I'm so programmed, to make that drive, to feel nervous, to have the coffee, to have the food, to talk plans and all that stuff. It's an interesting thing when you think about who's lining up with you. There can be some surprises for sure. But usually kind of where you're going to land depending on your preparation, So, there are years where at the Maah Daah Hey, Tinker will be there, Josh Estado will be there, and in your brain, for right or wrong, your brain is like, if all shakes out and we all have some decent luck, it's probably going to be us 3 or 4 or whatever duking it out for the win. And that's not to discredit anybody ever, because these races are so long, anything can happen. But the reality is I've raced against Tinker for many years. We've battled at World Championships together, and so you're like, well, we're approaching this as professionals. That's not to say you can't get beat by someone who's not a quote unquote pro. On the line, it's like if you look around, you sort of have your eye on a couple people, and it's Tinker, it's Tostado, it's whoever. And so that day I just remember thinking like, man, take this in. I'm starting next to my friends that I've met. I just told myself, I'm like, really enjoy this. Like don't worry about what's after the start. Don't worry about next year, it's like live with both feet in today. I get out front and I was like, oh, we're gonna settle in. And I do want to be in the front every year or close to the front before the never-ending switchbacks. If there's one thing I can do on a bike, usually it's climbing and technical climbing. I love it. And those switchbacks are like a perfect grade for me, and I just want to settle in and get into a good groove. I go around 1 or 2 switchbacks, and it's Tinker and I alone. I don't know exactly what part of the course it was, but he was getting distanced early on the climb, and I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. And it's gonna be a long day alone, but I'm gonna go for it. But I was feeling really good, and when we got to mile 25 and rolled through the aid station, I was like, this is gonna be a really good day.
Tinker comes through a minute and 15 seconds later, but the bigger excitement at the aid station is that after 25 miles, the first amateur is only a minute behind Tinker. The big question for years has been this: can an amateur actually win this race? The whispered name of someone who could actually take down the pros and pull this thing off is Bismarck, North Dakota's Tyler Huber.
Pass me.
Wow! That was fast!
To the hoop.
Jump it! Ready to hit the gritty all day.
My name is Tyler Huber. I race for the Burleigh County Bicycle Cult Factory Race Division.
So I got into mountain biking kind of reluctantly, I guess you could say. I was kind of a punk BMX kid, really into freestyle BMX, and got really psyched on the whole single speed movement when I discovered that, and that was a way for me to kind of jump from BMX freestyle to mountain biking, but still felt kind of punk rock. I fell in love with it, man. I fully fell in love with riding single speed mountain biking, and I wanted to push it as far as I could.
And then just kind of started to fall in love with the idea of trying to do the Maah Daah Hey 100 on a single speed. It hadn't been done at the time. In 2013, later that year, lined up for the race for the first time. I kind of fell in love with it from there, and I think I've finished it maybe 4 or 5 times since then. I've done the 150 coming back from Brenning Colvane all the way up north on a single speed as well. I've met my best friends through bikes. My social circle outside of work is pretty much nearly all bike related. It's just the best people. Like, you find yourself a group of cycling friends, and you're surrounded by the best people, happy people most of the time, competitive people.
When you look at the results that Tyler has accomplished throughout his career, it's really impressive because he is an amateur. He's not a pro. He's a guy with a family. He works a 9-to-5 job. He and his best friend Ian Easton run a nonprofit in Bismarck to help get more people out on bikes. And then he has the challenge of trying to prepare for these races and trying to keep the balance of everything going as he's trying to train and prepare for the racing and balancing life.
It's an insane balance. I mean, I don't like sacrificing evenings with the kids, and it's the same on the weekends, waking up before anyone's awake, trying to get out before daylight even breaks, starting in the dark, finishing up when my kids are still maybe wrapping up breakfast, getting in those long 5-6 hour days on the weekends, and just being disciplined, being regimented about it.
2019 was definitely a high out here for me. Doing the Maah Daah Hey 100, having a great ride, setting the course record with a single speed, then being able to back it up with the 150. I was the only person to finish that year. It was a rain year. My phone said I walked 40 miles of the 154 miles.
He would have had a really fast time on that 150-mile race course if we wouldn't have gotten rain that year, and it ended up being just a muddy sufferfest for him.
The amateur question is a popular one at the Maah Daah Hey 100 because other than 2012, the very first year of the race, an amateur has never been able to pull it off. There have been guys that have come close. A couple fellas have even got as high as the second step, but no one has ever been able to climb back up to that top step.
When a regular guy, right, like a guy with a family, wife and kids, someone that's just, you know, has a 9-to-5 job, isn't an Olympic level athlete like Tinker, or, you know, a professional mountain biker like Kelly with 24-hour races under his belt all over the world. That's you know, that's just a different level.
It can be a really tough gig because you're spending a lot of energy searching for support, because, you know, a lot of times you have a family, you've got a full-time career, you know, and when you've got a career and a family, you know, like, you can't just go ride for 4 hours a day, you know, in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, you know. So you're piecing together rides, you're piecing together races.
You just got to make it happen. You got to be creative with your time and just kind of go all in on it, and just really want to love doing it.
You seriously need the stars to align on this, because you need your training to go perfectly. And then you need your family and your loved ones, the people around you, to be supportive of what you're doing. And then you probably need some businesses in your community who are going to support you so that you can do this very expensive sport. And then on top of all that, you're trying to close this talent gap down to the professionals.
It's just when you start like looking at all the matches you've got to burn in life to get to the start line prepared, and then when you're at the start line, do you have the support? You know, do you have everything? It's just, it feels like you're pushing a boulder up a mountain. I did tell my cousin, you know, earlier in that morning before the race, I was like, I think there's something about Tyler that I'm seeing this year that makes me nervous, you know?
So Kelly goes, Tyler, I think he's a potential contender for top 3. I think we're gonna be riding up against him.
When you see everything these guys run up against on their way to the starting line, you can see how when they start to have success, they quickly become fan favorites.
You know, leaving aid station 1, feeling like I was going to be in front the rest of the day, feeling like it was going to be a long day, I found myself losing focus a little bit, and I blew like 2 corners, nothing big, nothing, you know, it didn't cost me anything really. But it was a lapse in focus.
I caught Tinker. I mentioned to him, you know, Kelly's on one. He agreed. I went past Tinker.
At one point, you know, you look back, when you're going up a big climb, you can see a ways back, and I see a jersey down in the valley, and I knew it wasn't Tinker, and because I could see some color on the jersey, and I was like, that's Tyler. And if I'm honest, I was like, man, he's catching me and I'm not going slow. And that plays with your mind a lot.
You kind of get sneaks and peeks of people around bluffs and over climbs. And I snuck up behind him on one. I was like, oh, Kelly's right there. There it is.
I think I go through a gate or two. I open the gate and I look back, and Tyler is right there.
And he said, it's going to be a lonely day if I'm out here by myself. So we decided to kind of join forces at that point then.
We just started talking a little bit there. And in my mind, though, there's two things here. There's what's happening in my head, and then there's what's happening outwardly. And we all play that game, no matter who you are. Like, I'm not going to tell Tyler that I'm struggling a little bit. And to be fair, I wasn't struggling all that much. I just was kind of shocked to see him there.
And just talked about, hey, let's just take turns pulling gates. If you ever raced the Maah Daah Hey, you know that they have, or even ridden the Maah Daah Hey, you know that they have these giant heavy gates that you have to pull open every time you go through like a land change or whatever it might be that the gate separates. And they're hectic to open. After you get fatigued later in the day, you might even have to get totally off your bike, but you have to basically raise this gate, and it's much easier for one rider to raise the gate, next rider to ride through, than it is to try to like pass it off between the two. So Kelly and I talked about, hey, let's just do the good old gate exchange.
We're having conversations about family, about whatever I was asking. He was asking about my kids, I was asking about his, and
just rode together. I don't know, it's just like a couple of buddies just, cruising the Maah Daah Hey together at that point in time.
Everyone at the upcoming Magpie checkpoint doesn't really know what's happening. They don't know that Tyler's made the catch. They don't know that Kelly and Tyler are riding together, kind of having bro fest. No one knows anything because Tyler's tracker is working, but Kelly's isn't. So no one really knows where Kelly actually is out on course. So everyone is just waiting, anticipating that Kelly is going to show up to the Magpie checkpoint first, when out of nowhere, two riders appear, with Tyler driving the pace, and Kelly and Tyler just talking like crazy, gabbing like a bunch of magpies.
Thank you, guys.
Howdy.
So that was a surprise. Holy crap. I wasn't quite ready. Talking to some lady, and I hear riders coming, and Tyler's out in front with Kelly. So, yeah, wheel to wheel.
Normally, the checkpoints in these races are chaotic zones. You have the family and loved ones of the riders in this area. You also had this year, in our case, the film crew for this film. And then you have the support and gear drivers for each and every rider. Now, these are the people that are in charge of getting the riders through the race and getting them what they need at the checkpoints. And the next checkpoint after Magpie is check C. Now, normally this is just kind of a overlooked checkpoint within the race around the midway point, but this year it served as the important turnaround point for the out and back course. The turnaround also served as aid station 2, and the riders will tell you that aid station 2 is possibly the most important checkpoint or aid station on the course.
It all has to come together. The logistics of a point-to-point is such an adventure, and you have just as much of an adventure for the SAG crew that's meeting the rider at the checkpoints as you do the rider trying to get to the checkpoints. Having everything come together is all very important for a successful race.
Especially with the Maah Daah Hey, SAG is important because you're out there in the middle of nowhere, and if you don't have somebody waiting for you, a lot of times there's aid stations, but when you get to the point where you have been racing for a long time, you know what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and at an aid station sometimes they don't have what works for you and what you really want, and so someone needs to be there with what you want.
I mean, I would never have had any of the success in any of my bike racing without people that are there to help you and there to support you and are a part of the mission. I personally think no more so than in 24-hour racing, and specifically the Maah Daah Hey 100. That's a point-to-point race, and so you have to have somebody that knows their way around the Badlands. They need to know timing. They need to have a vehicle that can drive through the river. My cousin Ryan has been just so selfless and just so professional about his work as a support crew. I mean, we're a team. I told him after the last Maah Daah Hey 100, I was like, this is us, man. I don't understand how somebody can just tirelessly wake up, at 3:30 in the morning every year and just dedicate all this time. And, it's an expensive endeavor too. He never asks for anything, and we try to take care of him. And so important for me when I see him and my family come out. It's just a really motivating factor. It kind of keeps me fighting in the really hard times, which you're going to have a really hard time on that trail.
Kelly and I have been doing this for 16 years, so this isn't our first rodeo or our first dance. So for 16 years, learning and understanding what to do, not only from the physical side of providing water and food and whatever else from refueling the body, but also the mental side of it. That is probably the biggest factor in accomplishing and finishing the Maah Daah Hey, is the mental side of it. Because we all know mentally, if you can tell yourself to do it, you're gonna do it.
Melissa is my wife. She's my partner. She's, probably the most patient person that I know on the face of this earth.
We met at a bike shop because I wanted to buy a bike. And then I got a husband a few years later. I have only known Tyler as a biker, and I can tell that it makes him happy. I know it's important to him, and so it's kind of become important to me too. And biking is a huge part of our family life. At the beginning of a race for Tyler, I am more nervous than he is, 100%. It used to be because I wanted to make sure I did all the right things at the aid stations, got him the right things he needed. I don't worry so much about that anymore because we've done this so many times that we know each other. I know what he needs and what he wants. I just am nervous for him because I want him to do well.
I don't have to second guess it. I know I'm going to get exactly what I need to support me to do the bike race that day.
I like to treat this like NASCAR. If everyone's good, if they're good, why keep them from pedaling? Let's keep them going. Let's keep that pace. And so it's very much like a NASCAR pit stop. It's quick and get it, not a lot of downtime.
When you're competing, you want to have as short of stops as possible. We usually get there earlier and just sit and wait and wait and wait. And it is very anxiety inducing because you don't know when they're gonna come. And so once we got there and just waited, and then you see them coming, and I knew Tyler at the turnaround was with Kelly. And then when they pull up,
Ice at the next one?
Nope. Yes, ice at the next one.
No lube?
No, I'm good. Okay. 2 bottles of water in my U-Sway pack.
Okay.
And an energy. And you want to throw? If you got like a rig, you have a rig too? No. Shit.
All right.
Okay, we're good. Okay.
Out and back?
Both Tyler and Kelly are really experienced racers at the Maah Daah Hey 100, and they know that third section of trail really well. But for both Tyler and Kelly, everything they know about that third section of trail went out the window on Friday night when the trail got switched to an out and back course. So for these two guys, as well as every other racer in the race, there's a lot of confusion and question marks over what this back section of trail will actually be like.
The thing about this year and having it be an out and back and then an additional loop is that you miss the third section of trail, which has broken me so many times.
It gets really hot at that point in the day typically, and there's just relentless climbing.
And it just feels like never ending climbs. Like you get to the top of a butte and you just want to see the next aid station, and all you see is endless badlands.
That's my favorite part of the course as well. I kind of, that's where I excel. That's where I kind of feel like I can level up a little bit against competition.
That's where the race starts. Halfway through, 50 miles in.
Every other year that I've came out here, it's been triple digits and it's suffering. And the race isn't won in the first 50. The race is usually won in like the last 40 when it becomes a battle of attrition and kind of who can keep swinging the longest.
The out and back change, I didn't know how that was going to go.
We were going down some of this stuff, and on a typical year, I would just be like, hey, this is super gnarly. This is a crazy rutted downhill. This is kind of dicey. But this year with the out and back, I was thinking a lot of the time to myself, like, okay, I got to turn around and then I got to come back up this. Like, dang, like this is going to be something to come right back up.
I knew we were way out front. At this point, I knew it was going to be, it's going to come down to he and I. And when you get people riding together at mile 50, you're in for a treat.
So we were riding together and we were chit-chatting, and Kelly's the kind of guy that I want to ride with. He'll have a conversation with you, and he'll talk to you about kind of maybe more personal things.
I was feeling okay. There was some, like, the check engine light wasn't on just yet, but I was feeling, I was getting tired.
And we're maybe going through these motions of, just being a couple of grown boys out there on the trail, having fun riding together.
You're just like, wow, and Tyler looks really good. And every time we're going up a little rise, it's just, he's going hard enough, that it's just like, all right, well, we're working, even if we're chatting here and there, like, we're working hard. At that same time, I think Tyler was like, it's game on. Like, we're at the part of the race where we're gonna start figuring out what's happening. And we're all making those calculations in our minds, we'll be kidding ourselves if we weren't.
So I'm really curious to see at what point these guys decide they're not gonna be homies anymore. Right.
Kelly and Tyler rip back through Magpie, and as they do so, it's becoming increasingly apparent that Tyler is really strong on the day. And that leads people back down the amateur rabbit hole. And that's a really interesting question, because can the amateur beat the pro is one thing, but what happens when the pro is one of the amateur's heroes?
Kelly's kind of the king of the Maah Daah Hey, I'm totally in utter respect to Kelly and his dominance of that trail. I got into mountain biking through a bike race called Race to Sunset that took place in Bismarck here. A local legend named Kelly Magelky started showing up, and Kelly would come out and he would do the 12-hour and he would completely dominate it, smile on his face the whole time. He kind of became this like local like North Dakota, like legend. Like there wasn't a lot of people from our area who kind of accelerated and kind of went on to make, go very far with it, especially not make a professional career of it like Kelly did. Years went by where we would do the local race here at Race to Sunset. It was almost like, the local celebrity was coming to town, and he felt kind of untouchable to me, and I didn't even talk to him back then. I was just like, okay, this dude's on his own level. This mountain biking thing. He was definitely like our local hero and the local legend for, I say for, but he still is today. So yeah.
There's always that chance. There's always that, anything could happen in a race, right? Like there was a day when Kelly beat Tinker, right? And that was a moment for him. That was like a dream that he worked towards really hard to get to that point. And you always know that there is always that chance that you could beat your hero.
And I kind of started to raise my level of racing a little bit. And as I did that, you kind of start knocking on the doors of some of these guys that are your heroes, and you start lining up at the starting line of like Dakota 5-0, and you're next to like a Kelly Magelky. I was super starstruck, I guess, at the time, and just really like, whoa, like I'm starting to kind of like ride with this guy instead of like ride around this guy. And it eventually got to the point in 2019 when I went through a check stop and someone said to me, you know, Kelly's right up there. And I was blown away. I was like, holy shit, you know, I can't believe I'm catching this guy, my hero.
We were talking about it and he's like, yeah, I feel so bad because he was like on like basically under a tree, like he was bonking, and I just like stopped and I was like, are you okay? And Kelly was like, yep, just go ahead. And
I mean, to be honest with you, I think he had probably an off year that year and I probably caught him in a weak spot. But I think that it brought me to Kelly closer, and I was like, okay, like I can actually start like talking to this guy who like is like this hero, this guy who I have like up on kind of this super high pedestal.
So as they go through Magpie, it's evident that the action is about to kick off. But there's a lot of miles between Magpie and Aid 3. And there's not very much access, or I should say there's no access, to get out onto the trail and see what's happening between those two places. And so everyone just has to kind of stand around and wait.
There was just certain points leading up to like around mile 55 or whatever that I just like the check engine light was starting to flicker on. I think Tyler was like, you know, it's game on. Like we're at the part of the race where we're gonna start figuring out what's happening, and we're all making those calculations in our minds. You know, we'd be kidding ourselves if we weren't.
My legs felt strong, and I felt like it was just time to go and time to push it, and so I did, and he couldn't quite come with in that moment.
You know, there are no games. I mean, I'm not upset. I was actually super pumped for him in a way. I mean, truthfully, I was like, man, what a day. Like, he's on one, and this is gonna feel really good for him, you know? And so I just yelled. I was like, get him, like, go, you know?
As tough as it was dropping Kelly, and you're also, if it gets to the point where it's kind of personal and you're with a friend, it kind of is like, okay, I'm leaving my friend behind. Which it felt like that to a certain extent, but it was just time for me to go, and I didn't know any time. I could have had 20 seconds, I could have had 20 minutes. I had no idea, so I just kind of rode blindly. So I just kept pushing on and plowing through and just kept on riding. You know.
How's he doing?
Kelly was back probably like 4 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
And I talked to Ryan, his sake guy, and he said Kelly said that he's getting to him too.
Okay.
My mindset was, you don't come back from this. You know, I've done this for so long, and I wish I could say I was a person that like had these big come from behind wins and stuff. Truthfully, my whole career, any race that I've ever won was probably won from the front. But the one thing maybe that comes with age is just knowing you got to enjoy it. You know, you got to know in that moment. A coach once told me, you know, you gotta live right now, because right now is gonna be back then in the good old days before you know it. That earlier emotion of is this my last go started to come back up, and I was kind of given some space to that. And I was like, man, what a good day. What a good last day, you know, out here to fight for it. And you want to finish on good terms, you know? And I did think to myself, I'm like, I gotta see Ryan. I gotta have some caffeine.
It was the longest 5 minutes. And Kelly comes rolling in. We actually stop. I kind of get him fueled up.
Ryan gets Kelly going at 8:03 and notes that it's a 5-minute gap to Tyler. And Ryan races ahead to check the last time that he'll be able to give Kelly information before riders come back through the start-finish line.
I just came through and I was like, guys, I don't know what happened. The lights went out. But Ryan was like, you actually haven't lost any time to Tyler. You're keeping it steady. I think he said 6 minutes or something, 5 or 6.
It's still, you haven't lost any, and if anything, we've gained or maintained. That to me is a win.
And I was like, really? I was like, that's interesting. Because I just thought I was bleeding time.
This race is far from over, and there's a lot that can happen in the next 10 miles.
I started to feel real good. And I was climbing up things like it was no big deal. And I was like, this is weird. Like, all right, well, let's finish strong, you know? Like, I still, in my mind, Tyler was out there. I felt like I was racing my bike. I had all my energy back, and it was go time. I saw something on the horizon that I was like, you know, cool, I'll run in another person, it'll be good. It's like minutes go by, and this person in this white kit is not getting that much closer to me that quickly. And for half of a second, I was like, Tyler? I was like, no way.
So I hadn't seen Kelly since mile 55, and I got into Triple C and take that right-hand turn, and I look back, and sure as heck, Kelly's there. And in that situation, you know, where he's so close, and again, you're playing poker, right? I mean, it's a bike race. So I yell back in I'm like, I'm gonna make this sound as positive as I can. I'm stoked to see him, even though the last guy I want to see on the face of this earth.
I could almost like reach out and touch him, and I just hear Magelky.
Hey, maybe that'll make him think like I got a lot more matches in my matchbook than I do.
And I was like, what? Like, what?
All right, the race is back on. Like, I haven't raced in 45 miles, but now I'm doing it again.
And then all these things go through your head, because you're like, I don't want to have an 11-mile race, a cross-country race at the end of this. I have no idea if he's feeling good or not good, because in my mind, he just didn't think he was going to see me again, so he backed off. And now he's going to have all this energy to make another attack.
But to finish things off, riders are going to have to go out and do an 11-mile loop called the Long X Loop. And it features the most brutal climb on the entire Maah Daah Hey trail system.
The climb on the Long X Trail, man, you're either at that point in the 100-mile race, you're either the bug or you're the windshield.
The trail itself features some of the longest and steepest creek crossings on the entire Maah Daah Hey trail system. Then you have the Long X climb itself, which is 1.1 miles at 9% average. And it peaks out multiple times at 35%. 35%, that's hard to walk up, let alone ride your mountain bike.
That climb is legitimately hard. And I remember training for that kind of climb for the 24-hour race here in Colorado, because we have that kind of training here. And the switchbacks go, and then you come up and it levels out, and then you look up and then it just hits you again. Steeper, and then you go into some trees and you're like, this has to be done. And then you come around the corner, and this is like, if you're on the ropes, this is like someone giving you an uppercut, because it's like one last straight up loose dirt to the top. And if you're not cracked and just totally obliterated by then, chapeau, because that's a hard climb.
got in Triple C, ditched my hydration pack. I was told that there was the Maah Daah Hey trail and the Long X loop, because it was a 94 mile out and back and then 11 miles on top of that. And I was just jacked. I, down the goo, was gonna hammer it, gonna just go for broke and just try to make this thing happen. Instead of going right to do the 11 mile option, I took the left-hand turn, which is a 2 mile option. Okay, Kelly's chasing. You gotta go. Got to this next left-hand turn and then almost made it all the way back to Triple C again. I was like, oh, this is the wrong way. I took a second, looked back, see if Kelly was coming. I didn't see anyone, so I was like, all right, yeah, you messed up.
Chaos reigns in the start-finish area after Tyler takes the wrong turn, because everyone sees Tyler's tracker take the wrong turn, but then his tracker actually completes the small loop and finishes the race, but no one can find Tyler. And Kelly's tracker's not working. And so we don't know, did Kelly catch Tyler? Did he pass Tyler? Did Tyler get turned back around and is out on the course somewhere? Where are these two guys and what the heck just happened?
It's like this perfect storm happened, I go fast through the start finish area. I'm like feeling like it's gonna be an 11 mile cross country race at this point, and I'm feeling up to it. Feeling anxious about it, but I'm ready. And my mind isn't really working. Like here, I'm like, oh my God, took 6 minutes out of Tyler. Like if I'm him, I'm probably not feeling that great. I don't want to do an 11 mile ride against somebody who's feeling good. You don't think that way though, in that moment, usually. I was like, well, I'm gonna see Tyler any second, I'm gonna come up around this corner and see him, and nowhere to be found. And I'm like looking around corners and I'm like, can I see the trail like in front of me? And how about over here, and I just can't see him anywhere. And I was like, he must have jumped into his pit area. But you can't think that. You can't believe that. You gotta go. You have to go. Just like telling myself that, don't let yourself believe that. He's in front. He saw you. He knows you're here. He's gone.
There's the remote chance that, Kelly needed to stop, needed to, get rehydrated, had a cramp, something bad happened to him. Maybe something happened. So it's just kind of that never give up mentality.
And I went as hard as I could. I climbed everything as hard as I could. My legs were back, and we go to the huge climb. I go to the huge climb, and I look up, and I know where the climb goes, and I'm like, he would be there unless he's on the fastest lap, fastest ride he's ever been on. He would be here somewhere. Maybe he's behind a tree. Maybe it's like every time I look, he goes behind a shrub or something. And I was like, you can't allow yourself to think you're gonna win this thing. You have to just go.
As well as Kelly is riding at this point, as Tyler nears the top of the Long X climb, he knows that if he can just get over that last part of the climb, he will have nearly 5 miles of flat prairie to look across and be able to see Kelly and potentially chase him down.
Yeah, so here's my shoe. So I was going up a climb at the Long X loop, and got to the point of it. It was a steep one, and I went to unclip, and my foot made the motion like I was unclipping, but the sole of my shoe stayed in the bike, and I completely fell over into the grass like I had just learned how to ride like clip-in shoes earlier that day. And I stared up at my bike, and this is what I saw. I saw just like it stuck, and I had to like reach up and pry the sole of my shoe off. And at that point, I kind of decided that maybe the Maah Daah Hey was deciding that Kelly was going to win that race as much as Kelly was, because it had taken a toll on me.
When I got up to the prairie where you can see forever, he wasn't anywhere to be seen, and I'm like, man, I don't know who would have gone faster today up that stuff. I just don't know. And I started to let it seep in, but then again, I'm like, you got to go. And when I finished that lap, I went down the never-ending switchbacks, and I was in a really good mood, and I was like, regardless of this, I'm super proud of the day, regardless of what happens. And when I got all the way back and my cousin was at the entrance to the campground.
Yep. Good job, Kelly! Way to go, Kel! Way to fight! No, you are. Good job, man. You got this. Finish strong.
I just, that emotion that I had been sort of given only a little bit of space to just was like, I can't handle it, you know? And I just shook my head and just, you know, I think it's just that, the fight of that, you know? I fought that whole 11 miles just because I thought he was in front of me. You know, I was going so hard, and it was painful, but it was amazing. You know, there's a reason why we line up, and there's a reason why we keep fighting. And there's a reason why sport is an incredible thing to document, because you never know what's going to happen. Saw my family, and I don't usually do this, but man, you know, I've had a couple wins where you don't really control the emotion because you can't. Yeah, I just couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it, to be honest.
Second place in the Maah Daah Hey 100 on any year doesn't feel like a failure. On a year where you're racing against Kelly Magelky in top form, Tinker's on the podium as well. One of the reasons that I do these kind of races is the battle that takes place. It's the experience. It's the challenge. It's the stories. It's the short conversational exchanges that Kelly and I have along the way. It's the close calls. It's the missed bottles. It's all that kind of stuff, all wrapped into one. And you know, first place, second place. When I crossed that finish line, and I saw Kelly there, and he had won, and I realized that I took second place. I mean, it would have been a lot sweeter to have won the race, but I just, in that moment especially, I couldn't see it that way. All I could see it as was another memory that I'm gonna put in my bank, and I was just there at that time.
I just feel like the sport has given me so much, and winning and losing is fun to talk about. It's really fun to win. It's fun to talk about those really hard days you've had. I've had such a long career. Like I said, I can't believe any of it. I just always wanted to be a good sport, you know, in winning or in losing. If I have been lucky enough to win races, I just want to do that in a graceful way, you know. I've worked super, super hard for all of this, and so has everyone else, you know. And I think I want people that are out there trying to finish within 18 hours to understand that, I know that struggle. I know why you're out there doing it, and it's why I'm doing it now. Win or lose. I mean, it's fun to be up front, and it's fun to be winning races and all that stuff, but I just love riding my mountain bike so much and riding with the people that I've been able to ride with. And I just always want to be a person that's approachable by anybody for anything. You know, we're not saving any lives here. Literally, I'm not saving someone's life by winning a race, you know. I think cycling maybe had saved my life, but you know, I just it's just been such a great opportunity and a huge privilege to be able to do it, and I feel like the luckiest person in the world.
After the race, Kelly and I stayed in touch, especially as I worked on the film, and at some point this fall, Kelly started to share some information with me that I knew was part of this story. And so I said, hey Kelly, let's crank the cameras up for everybody and bring them into this phone call.
Hey man.
Hey John, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm sitting in my house. It's a nice fall, kind of snowy, rainy day. Glad to be inside and where it's warm.
Hey man, I don't want to keep you too long, but you know, it's been kind of fun going through like archives and all that stuff.
Kind of going back on the history of my cycling career, cycling life. But yeah, I figured like now is as good a time as any to just sort of chat about what I've been thinking about and talking to my family about and stuff. But I'm kind of glad you got that race on film, because I think that's my last race, man. I think that's giving it a lot of thought. I'm gonna kind of hang up the mass start events, like as it relates to bike racing. I mean, I'll probably jump into something here and there, but man, as it relates to just gearing up every single year, training, getting a schedule put in place, it's done, man. I feel like ending it in North Dakota on the Maah Daah Hey was just absolutely the perfect way.